The oldest and most basic of social relationships is the family. All of human society is a composite of family units, a compound family. There is an intimate connection between family functioning and the development of a just society. When cooperation, equality, justice, and freedom from prejudice are fostered in the home, the foundations of our wider community are strengthened, and the seeds of world peace are sown. The concept of family, what they are and what they do, has evolved radically since our grandparents' era. The American family then was composed of 2 adults in permanent union that produced 3 to 5 children. All other kinds of family were the exception. Today, the exceptions are the rule. Social and economic changes place new pressures on today's families, but in terms of function, families have not changed very much. The vision of family upheld by members of the Baha'i Faith rests on the principle of the oneness of humankind, that all members of the human family are created by the same loving God and have the same basic spiritual capacities. It means seeing everyone as brothers and sisters to be loved without distinction.
Know ye not why we created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder at all times in your hearts how ye were created.
For the next half hour, we'll explore ways in which the family serves as an incubator for the acquisition of values. You will meet some members of the Baha'i Faith and hear how they incorporate these principles into their daily lives. For Renee and Eugene Dixon, shaping their children's attitudes and behaviors around positive values is a conscious and daily effort. Joshua, Fondi, and Dorothy Janae are being taught how to relate to others outside of their home by example and by how they are treated in their home. Renee and Eugene are convinced that practicing the equality of women and men in their marriage is the most essential and enduring model they can offer their children. The couple affirmed the principle of equality at the beginning of their lives together when they took the Baha'i wedding vow. It consists of one short but profound statement.
We will all verily abide by the will of God. Well, that makes it equal. I'm not promising to Gene, he's not promising to me. We're promising to God that we're going to abide by His will. And it leaves it open for whatever that will is. I don't consider myself less than my husband. We're equal partners in this relationship that we started. If a relationship isn't equal, then it puts one above the other and it's off balance.
Exploring equality in spiritual terms has led to profound and fulfilling changes in the way Renee and Eugene relate to each other.
To me, it's just about trying to stay in touch with your own spiritual self. You know, and trying to, and taking issues such as the equality of men and women, taking them to God and say, how do I deal with this individually? I mean, I can't solve this problem on a world level, but I can sure give it a shot in my own life. And ask God, how do I deal with this as a man? For men, we really need to listen to women. I mean, genuinely listen to what they have to say. Because I don't think we're going to advance any further than we are without their genuine input and us genuinely accepting what they have to say.
Well, I think worshiping God together and participating in a spiritual community is important to the support of the family. And I found that in the Baha'i Faith.
An important goal for Baha'is is to raise a generation of loving and prejudice-free children. For the Dixons, this means finding every opportunity to instill these virtues in their children.
like my children, I'm always trying to, my daughter especially, I'm always trying to compliment her, not so much on her beauty, but on her intellect. I always let her know that she's a beautiful kid, but trying to apply a virtue to that in the same breath. You know, like that you're a responsible person, that you're a loving child, that you're kind, generous, those kind of things. So that she's not so much trying to look in the mirror at a physical person, but start to look inwards at her spiritual capacity and her spiritual beauty.
The Dixon household stays unified through consultation and family meetings. Through this process, problems are very often prevented or resolved.
We have every Monday night a dinner, and that's our family dinner that we all have together and we all have to be there for. And usually after dinner, my mother pulls out this box of little cards and labels, and on each label is a virtue.
Reliability. You got it again.
And so we all pick a virtue, and then we read what that virtue means.
I gotta tell you, man, we come to that table hemming and hawing, man. We're all going, okay, what kind of virtue we're gonna have to work on this week?
The following week is occupied by demonstrating that virtue. And then, at the next Monday night dinner,
we get to sit around the table and have a conversation, and then after dinner's done and we've cleaned up, and we sit around the table and we talk about, you know, the virtue we picked the week before and how we did with it.
Dorothy's favorite virtue is love.
Because around my house, everybody shows love, and it's good to show love to your friends and family.
The family is a unique and special kind of community, one that educates and serves. A learning laboratory, where individuals develop attitudes and habits they will ultimately express in the world at large. For the Dixons, equality is a virtue that unites and enriches the family.
There is a powerful sense of transformation and renewal alive in America today. Families and individuals are uniting together, bridging race and religion, rising above the forces of separation and conflict. Individual Baha'is and their communities are contributing to this momentum of hope. The Baha'i Faith is still new to many people, but in just over 100 years, it has already transformed the hearts and lives of millions throughout the world. Baha'is are a true cross-section of humanity. Men and women of various religious, ethnic, social, and economic backgrounds, striving to bring about universal peace and equality. Commitment and strength derives from faith in God. Spirituality is nurtured through the study of God's Word, worship, and prayer. Prayer is one of the foundations of Baha'i life.
O God, refresh and gladden my spirit.
Purify my heart, illumine my powers.
I lay all my affairs in thy hand. Thou art my guide and my refuge.
I will no longer be sorrowful and grieved. I will be a happy and joyful being.
O God, I will no longer be full of anxiety, nor will I let trouble harass me.
I will not dwell on the unpleasant things of life.
O God, thou art more friend to me than I am to myself.
I dedicate myself to thee, O Lord.
The teachings of the world's religions have enabled humankind to achieve spiritual and social progress. These universal truths are both a source of individual transformation and social development.
Consort with all the peoples, kindreds, and religions of the world with the utmost truthfulness, kindliness, goodwill, and friendliness, that ignorance, hate, and rancor may vanish from the world and may give way to the light of unity.
If you would like to know more about the Baha'i Faith, please call 1-800-22-UNITE. or visit our website at www.us.baha'i.org. You can request a free copy of Two Wings of a Bird, the Baha'i Statement on the Equality of Women and Men, and the Baha'is magazine. Check your local listings for activities in your area. There is no obligation and no contributions will be accepted. If the family is to be the true incubator of a generation of peace and equity, then passing on those qualities from parent to child is one of the fundamental goals of parenthood. The Millers have worked hard to empower their children with the capacities to make choices based on positive values and to believe that they can accomplish all that they set out to do.
I have memories of sitting around the dinner table and my father kind of going around to all of the children and asking our views on different subjects of the world.
You know, I'll never forget when Layli went to the Soviet Union for 6 weeks, and it was a program called Partners for Peace. And I remember when I went and picked her up at the airport, and I remember the moment we walked back into our house, she just kind of looked around and said, "Dad, you don't know how lucky we are." And I said, "Yes." You know, it was worth it. And I think that's perspective, and I think that's just something we as parents have a responsibility to do, is to give our children perspective. Otherwise, they live in an unreal world.
My mother is very active in the community and is very involved herself in issues of civil rights, working on issues of justice. And I think that example was something that was very inspiring to me.
I know my husband and I ask ourselves, how did we translate our values of service to our children? And it seems that Layli really has adopted those values in a way that perhaps she learned at a very early age. So I think she felt like if she persevered and if she worked hard and if she put her high ideals into practice, that anything could happen, that there in fact could be justice.
Layli now practices law in Washington, D.C. As a 23-year-old law student, she took on a case that would become one of the most important U.S. legal cases in recent years regarding women's rights. It began on the other side of the world, in the small country of Togo. Here, many young women, like Fauzia Kazinja, traditionally are forced to undergo ritual circumcision as a rite of passage into womanhood. This ritual is also known as female genital mutilation, or FGM. Just hours before her ritual, family members helped Fauzia flee from Togo. She came to the U.S. to ask for asylum and protection from the ritual, which had killed her aunt and several friends. But instead of finding refuge, she was arrested and placed in detention. It would be almost 8 harsh months in maximum security before 17-year-old Fauzia would get her first asylum hearing.
My commitment to Fauzia, to the issue of female gemulation, to women's rights in general, really stems from my belief as a Baha'i in the importance of the equality of women and men.
Yeah, you feel that if there is an injustice happening in Cambodia, it's happening to your family. And I think that this is one of the reasons why we felt so committed to support Layli in her work with the female genital mutilation.
The Board of Immigration Appeals, the highest immigration appellate tribunal, agreed to hear Fauzia's case.
Eventually, they rendered a decision which was favorable to Fauzia. It granted her asylum because of female gemulation, and it established a national legal precedent with regard to women being able to receive asylum on account of female genital mutilation.
Upon her release from prison, Fauzia lived for a short time with Layli's family.
The mother-in-law said, "This is your room." I said, "My room? Oh my God, I have my whole room to myself." And she said, "This is your bathroom." I went there just like, cool, like heaven. I said, "Oh my God." So I started jumping on the bed. I said, "Oh my God." I told Layli, "Please, if this is a dream, don't you wake me up." I told her that. She said, "Oh, it's not a dream, don't worry."
Layli used her proceeds from a book on the case to found the Tahirih Justice Center, which helps women who face human rights abuses.
None of us know what our children are going to end up doing. you know, what career path they're going to end up doing. They'll probably have several careers these days. But what's important is we develop their capacities, their capacity to think, their capacity to take action, their capacity to make value-based choices and decisions. If we develop those capacities, whether girl or boy, man or woman, they will accomplish. They will accomplish to the best of their capacity, and that's all we can pray for.
Humanity is like a bird, and
Laylee gave a talk here some months ago for International Women's Day, and a number of people from her school came, both the founder of her school and some of her teachers, and people in the Baha'i community who've known her for forever, you know, since she was a toddler. And one of them said to me that she wanted to come see how our daughter had turned out, sort of taking ownership for her. And I said, that's absolutely right. I mean, she is our daughter, the community's daughter, absolutely.
Baha'is believe that all of the world's major religions have been stages in the continuing revelation of God's will and purpose for humanity, which has finally come of age. God's purpose in sending his prophets unto men is to liberate the children of men from the darkness of ignorance, guide them to the light of true understanding, and ensure the peace and tranquility of mankind. Educating children to have a high moral character and genuine appreciation for all people is of primary importance to Baha'is. Baha'i community life is characterized by a spirit of joy, reconciliation, and social action. Youth activities utilize the fine arts and dramatic performances to foster a better understanding of racial unity and the importance of community service. A distinction of the Baha'i faith from traditional religion is the absence of professional clergy. Each person is encouraged to investigate truth independently and not to rely solely on human intermediaries. The administrative affairs of a Baha'i community are conducted by a body of 9 members called the Spiritual Assembly. They are elected annually by community members 21 years or older. Spiritual Assembly members are primarily responsible for community activities, but do not regulate the process of individual belief and worship. The nature of the assembly is that of service to the community in a loving and non-authoritarian manner. Baha'is gather regularly for worship, reflection on the Holy Scriptures, and prayer. Beyond devotional gatherings, worship consists of an attitude toward God reflected in life. Conforming one's life to serve humanity is one example of putting that spirituality within each of us to work. All participate equally in meetings held to discuss ways to be of service to the community at large. Decisions are arrived at through a consensus-building process designed to maintain unity and ensure the participation of diverse voices.
If you would like to know more about the Baha'i Faith, please call 1-800-22-UNITE or visit our website at www.us.baha'i.org. You can request a free copy of Two Wings of a Bird, the Baha'i Statement on the Equality of Women and Men, and the Baha'is magazine. Check your local listings for activities in your area. There is no obligation and no contributions will be accepted. In Buffalo, New York, one family has created a refuge for neighborhood children and youth trying to escape the violence and pain of inner-city life. For the past 10 years, Dina and Ray Chazinski have sacrificed enormous amounts of resources and time to provide a fun, safe, and loving environment that's as good for the body as it is for the soul. Central to their efforts are classes, where youth develop the tools to attack the day-to-day problems they're confronted with.
Helpfulness. Is your mom home? Yeah. Okay, can I talk to her?
The Chazinskis live in a community that suffers the devastating effects of poverty, racial polarity, and broken families. Years ago, the Chazinskis considered moving, but at the time, it was impossible.
I said, we're not moving out of the neighborhood. It's not within our means to move out of the neighborhood and get a different house. I says, if you want to change, you're going to have to make the change, I says, in the neighborhood.
My father told us, if you don't like the way it is, you got to change it. You can't just sit back and watch it. So we had to figure out a way to change it. And then my mom, she started praying and praying. She's like, we're not going to move. What are we going to do? So she's praying and praying, how am I going to live in this world?
The next day I come home and there's 30 kids in my living room having a discussion about the struggles they're having with life.
Dina was pursuing an idea that she and Ray had dreamed up back when they were teenagers. They began working to create a safe haven for young people in distress.
I know for me that I don't have the challenges that maybe some other people have with relating to them because I have similarities. I've played out a lot of the rage, and self-destructive behaviors. So, I listen to kids that cry.
Damien Martinez is one of the youth who has been living with the Chazinskis off and on over the past year.
She knows what it's like, She has been there, done that, so she really knows that, she proves to you that you can actually become somebody. You don't have to become negative like your environment. You really could become somebody.
A lot of these kids are facing a lot of real issues at home, and whether it has to do with physical abuse or sexual abuse, or it has to do with a lot of alcoholism, a lot of racism.
Dozens of neighborhood kids have attended classes that focus on values and learning how to make choices that peacefully resolve problems, rather than having to resort to violence and conflict.
Sometimes I would do a lot of work with the kids, and there's a lot of sacrifice, for myself and my family that comes into that. And so I really was going through a lot of turmoil with wondering is this sacrifice worth it? Does it really make a difference? What direction should I be going in? And I really cried and really struggled with whether I should stay here and whether I should be doing this. We got this pool about 6-7 years ago, and it was at a point in our life when we paid our mortgage off, and we thought about maybe, should we move, go to a better area, because we live in a very low income area. We made the decision that we wanted to stay here, and so we decided to, instead of moving, to take some money that we had and to put it into getting this pool, and that it would be a way of serving the community.
Kids that came here and they were all racial slurs coming out of their mouth, every other word, and just cursing, and their whole entire attitude. They're still the same person, they just had this in them all along, and all of a sudden you see it come out, and all this other stuff that they learned from the outside world or their family or whatever, it's just gone. And then you see them, they're shining and they're bright, and it's like, wow. And it was wonderful to see that, but at the same time, our whole house was completely overtaken.
At some point you're going to want to look over the virtues, and I forgot to bring the poster out, but everyone has one of these in your packet, okay?
When you respect other people's property, they are more likely to respect yours. When you treat yourself with respect, others respect you too.
Increasing popularity led them to purchase the abandoned house next door. Now the Chazinskis have 2 houses for meetings and transient youth.
Have I in heaven but thee?
What I know about the program, I learned from my children. When they would come down and visit and come back home, they always talked about Dina and what they learned. I'm like, what is a Baha'i? I'm pronouncing it right, Baha'i? And I'm like, what is it? I don't know. I never heard of it. It's like people, when they never hear of something, they have a perspective of it, and it don't even be what you think it is. And that's what it was. That's why I came for myself to find out. I want to do something that's good for the family, to keep us all together in one knit, happy home.
And I think wherever you live, you can make an enormous impact on the community around you. And I think about that ripple effect, you know, like if you throw a pebble into a pond and the ripples that stem from that, and all of the people and the community and around you that, that really are affected.
The Chizinskis have taken the family concept and broadened it to include the entire neighborhood. All the children of this neighborhood are Dina and Ray's children, regardless of their background. They have also provided an example of what a family is and what a family can do, and how people, through personal initiative and through the initiative of the entire family, can make a difference in an entire community.
Every day, Baha'is, in cooperation with people of all backgrounds and experiences, are using the principles of peace and equality to end conflict and injustice. They are building a community founded on the recognition of the oneness of humankind. Baha'u'llah, the prophet and founder, revealed the teachings that laid the foundation of the Baha'i Faith over 150 years ago. He was persecuted for proclaiming that the founders of the world's enduring religions and their teachings are in essence the same. Baha'u'llah's writings amplify the spirit at the heart of each religion. He expresses them in ways which relate to all humankind in this age, moving people away from all forms of superstition and intolerance. The teachings of Baha'u'llah reaffirm the spiritual truths of the past, but also offer new insights that will help build unity and peace among all people.
Baha'u'llah died in 1892, but in the hearts of millions throughout the world, his vision of peace and justice lives on. In 1992, Baha'is throughout the United States and the world gathered in New York City to celebrate the wide diversity of the human race. The event was a snapshot of a unified and peaceful world as envisioned by Baha'u'llah. The transformation of society and its relationships begins with our ability to transform ourselves, our families, and our communities. The spiritual brotherhood which is enkindled and established through the breaths of the Holy Spirit unites nations and removes the causes of warfare and strife. It transforms mankind into one great family and ensures the universal peace.
So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth.
If you would like to know more about the Baha'i Faith, please call 1-800-22-UNITE or visit our website at www.us.baha'i.org.